the chairman of the Pratishthan, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I'm very honored that you asked me to come and speak about a favorite topic of mine, which is the decline of the Indian economy, or destruction of the Indian economy in the last 10 years of UPA rule. We will, towards the end, I will speak about who's responsible. But today there is a new book out written by the press secretary of the Dr. Manmohan Singh, called Dr. Sanjay Baru, a respected economist, also became an editor. And he has written a book called The Accidental Prime Minister. He's accidental because his name was not there. In fact, the first list submitted to the President, Dr. Abdul Kalam, was 340 names of MPs newly elected in separate letterheads, saying that they are supporting Ms. Sonia Gandhi to be the Prime Minister. In fact, Ms. Sonia Gandhi was keen on becoming Prime Minister, contrary to the subsequent propaganda. And the NCP leader, Mr. Sharad Pawar, had given a letter saying that the NCP supports Congress party forming the government. So she personally phoned him up and told him, please change the letter to supporting Ms. Sonia Gandhi as Prime Minister. So there was enough sufficient evidence. But I had written a letter to the President that she cannot become Prime Minister legally, because we have in our citizenship a proviso which says that any foreigner becoming citizen of India will be subject to the same restriction as an Indian becoming a citizen in that country of that foreigner. In Italy, unless you are born in Italy, you cannot be Prime Minister. So therefore, that restriction would apply to Ms. Sonia Gandhi, and she could not become Prime Minister for that reason. But the President was not sure, so he invited me. I explained to him, he was convinced. And when I left the room, there were a table with 340 letters arranged state-wise. So out of curiosity, I looked through the UP list, and amongst the MPs who had proposed a name was a letter which says, I, Sonia Gandhi, elected from Raebareli, hereby propose Sonia Gandhi for Prime Minister of India. So Mr. Kalam was convinced of my argument, so he wrote a letter at 3:30 saying, I had invited you to come and stake your claim at 5 o'clock, but now I have got a complaint from Dr. Subramanian Swamy, which I don't know the merits of, so I'm referring it to the Supreme Court. Till that time I cannot invite you to form the government. But you still want to discuss with me, come tomorrow at 10 a.m. Then next day she went, had a big quarrel with him, but he didn't yield ground. And finally he said, why don't you have somebody in the meantime as a Prime Minister who will listen to you? And so she found Manmohan Singh. Today we have a contrast. Manmohan Singh was Finance Minister of Mr. Narasimha Rao, and he is credited with performing a miracle in economic development by bringing economic reforms. So as Finance Minister he brought a miracle, but as Prime Minister he could not do anything. How can that be? That is because the economic reform package was, the blueprints were prepared by me in the previous government of Chandrasekhar, and I was also a cabinet minister rank position as the head of the GATT commission in Narasimha Rao's government. And it was Mr. Narasimha Rao who gave the political clearance and saw it through, and to him the credit should go. But unfortunately, Ms. Sonia Gandhi didn't like Narasimha Rao because of the reason that in 1991, when the results came out, the Congress party had got only 240 seats. So the family of Ms. Sonia Gandhi decided that she is a novice, and if she becomes Prime Minister now, she will not be able to run a minority government. So let us try to break other parties and make majority. But in the meantime, let us find some sick old man who will not live very long and make him Prime Minister in the temporary period. So they found a man who had 3 bypass operations, several heart attacks, diabetic, and that was Narasimha Rao, and made him Prime Minister. But unfortunately, no sooner he became Prime Minister, his health began to improve. And he just would not leave the Prime Ministership. So that's why she didn't like him and did not give him credit for the economic reform. The last 10 years has been total destruction of whatever we achieved in the 1990s. And I have taken statistics for your benefit out of the Planning Commission documents and the Finance Ministry documents presented to Parliament. For example, growth rate of GDP. Last year of NDA, 2004, the growth rate was 8.4% per year. In 2014, these last 3 months, compared to the 3 months of the previous, the growth rate is 4.8%. 8.4% to 4.8%. It has come down very sharply. Then the rate of savings, which is very important because economic growth is fueled by investment. Investment is savings plus foreign direct investment. So both of them together are called investment. So, but in India, about 95% of our investment is from domestic savings. So the domestic savings also has come down from 33% to 30%. And the industrial production has come down from a rate of 7.3% to -2% this last year. These are all statistics that I have not done research and produced. They are already in publications of the Government of India submitted to Parliament. In the 12th five-year plan document, they have given for statistics on the number of jobs created. The 5 years of NDA, 1999, 2002, 2003, 2004, these 5 years, the total number of jobs generated according to the Planning Commission documents is 60.7 million, which means about 12.1 million per year. While in the 7 years for which we have data for the UPA from 2004 to 2012, the total number of jobs generated is only 15.4 million, which means about 2.2 million per year. So in the NDA period, 12.1 million jobs were created per year, and in the NDA period, 2.2 million. So where is all this NREGA and MREGA and Nehru Rega and Raul Rega, and where is it all the money gone? It's all leaked on the way to the Congress party. Then the more dangerous thing is that the rupee has depreciated When the NDA left, it was 45 rupees per dollar. And in this last year, it rose to 67.7%. No, 67.70 rupees per dollar. Why it did fall so much, I will tell you in a minute. But just now I'm just giving you statistics to make it very clear, based on this government's publications, all these indicators are downwards. Then short-term debt, foreign debt. Short-term foreign debt means you have to suddenly, they can suddenly go out. There's no bar that it has to stay for 5 years, 10 years. Like foreign direct investment, it has to stay for a fixed period because they have to buy assets. But short-term debt comes in form of money. It is something called hot money. It goes into stock market, it goes into speculative activities, and it can go anytime it wants to leave. That is now become, the NDA period, the last year was 3.9% of GDP was short-term foreign debt. And it has risen to 24.8 last year. That means a total external debt today has risen from $112 billion to $400 billion. And our total foreign exchange reserves is only $377 billion. So if tomorrow all the creditors say, please give back our money, we won't be able to give it back. We will then have to declare ourselves as bankrupt. So the same thing in all other indicators, the current account deficit, in the balance of payments, the fiscal deficit, the government's budget. Budget is now running a deficit which is one of the highest in the world, more like the Latin American variety, which could lead to an economic collapse any time. Because our budget today is become so rigid that a small change can collapse the Indian economy. Take the central budget today. Interest payments, you have to, all the loans you have taken in the past, you have to pay back. Otherwise it will be called default. So interest payments is one chunk. Subsidies, nobody wants to touch, another chunk. Defense expenditure, nobody wants to reduce. And justifiably, it's already too low, it has to be increased. Then police, every day the demand for police is increasing. So that expenditure you cannot cut. Government salaries, can't cut because there's an election every 2 years. So you can't afford to do it. So all these categories, if you add them up, it turns out to be 98% of the revenue of the government. 98% of our revenue goes for this. So how are you going to spend, where are you going to find the money to borrow or to expend on capital investment? So the government then goes to public sector banks and said, give us your surplus cash. So government borrows from our banks. And that has reached a stage where today if you borrow 1 rupee from the bank, you have to return 96 paisa for the past loans which you have taken, interest and principal. So in another 2 years, if this continues, then it will become more than 1 rupee. That is called debt trap. Then the economy will collapse. So this is another statistics which is very alarming. So therefore, we find that on the financial front, the country has been practically destroyed. In every other field also we find the same thing. Agricultural growth rate down, going down every year. The investment in agriculture is going down. Farmers are committing suicides. And on the other side, we find power systems, they are malfunctioning. We find roads, for example. During the NDA period, first let's start from 1947 itself. 46 years, 1951 to 1997. These are 46 years of planned economy. 263 kilometers of road was built every year. Now, after that 6 years, NDA came, 1998 to 2004, and the NDA built 4,467 kilometers. That is, 46 years, only 253 kilometers per year of roads were built, new roads. NDA in 6 years built 4,467. And these last 8 years, for 2 years we don't have data, the UPA government has only built 1,406 kilometers per year. So in every indicator you can think of, the country is on the verge of a collapse. So just as time has come for a change of government, and it looks like there will be a change of government, because I saw all the opinion polls since September. And in September opinion poll, NDA was to get only 140 Lok Sabha seats. Then came November opinion poll, December opinion poll, 2 opinion polls in January, and then in February, and now in March 20th, another poll came. So from 140, the March 20th of 2014 poll shows it's gone from 140 to 260. And another poll is coming on 30th April. I'm sure it will say 300 for NDA. So I think what will happen now is that there is a possibility of change of government. And the question arises, and some of the questions circulated to me also are asking, what will the new NDA government do under the leadership of Narendra Modi? So there, before I answer that question, I will answer one excuse which the UPA gives. There was a recession in America, global crisis, and therefore it has affected us. If something good happens, they say we did it. If something bad happens, it's a global crisis, you see. Even Indira Gandhi used to use this excuse. Somebody said about corruption, she says it's a global phenomenon. If everybody is corrupt, we have to be corrupt. But the American crisis is totally different. What is the difference? Americans, you see, they were used to give liberal housing loans. And in America, you can get a loan for just 2% interest. In our country, loans are for 12% interest rate to 18% interest rate. And in America, you can get loans for 2% interest. And they were very liberal about giving to housing. So the bank, say, gives $100,000 as a loan to buy a house or build a house. So the bank's money of $100,000 is frozen in that loan. So some of these new MBAs, you see, who use computers and all, came up with a bright idea and told the banks, you are giving away $100,000 and collecting every month, you are collecting installments. We will give you $90,000 in one lump sum. 10,000 is our commission, and we will collect that installments from the house owner, the person who took the house loans. So bank was very happy. Our money will suddenly become liquid. 100,000 gone, all right, 10,000 minus 90,000 we have. So these investment banks made this proposal. This is called the principle of derivatives in finances. So the bank said, sure, we are ready for this. So once the bank got 90,000, they said, why should we keep it in the bank? Let's give another loan. So they gave another loan. Same people came back, all right, now for 85,000, 5,000 we will take, and the 80,000, we will give you 85,000, and we'll collect the installment. So it went on like that, and many new investment banks came up in the process. So now the banks were giving, then these people were coming, and this process was going on, and suddenly the number of reliable loans, that is loans which could be reliably expected to be paid back, that began getting exhausted. But the banks had become greedy by then, so they decided to take bigger risks. Even people who could not afford to pay back the loans, or there was a risk that they will not pay back the loans. So went on, and that is what is called as the subprime loan. Prime loan is when you're sure that loan will be paid back. Subprime loan is you're not so sure. So they decided to take the risk. And George Bush came as president, and he removed all the restrictions. He said, no, banks should be free to give loans to anybody they want. They should not take, risk is their responsibility and all that. Earlier on, there was a restriction that if the risk is estimated for more than 5%, then you can't give the loan. He removed it. So now banks began doing that. A small recession came to the American economy, and suddenly the people who got their loans later, they couldn't pay. So they said, we can't pay. So the banks, of course, were not responsible. Now the investment banks were responsible. So what could the investment banks do? They went and took the houses. But then they couldn't sell the house. And they couldn't maintain the house, because maintaining the house also would require money. And plus people are living there. You will have to throw them out. And that's a very painful process. So the investment banks started collapsing. So Lehman Brothers and others began collapsing, declaring bankruptcy. And they had branches in Europe. That also started collapsing. And that's how the American Depression came. But it didn't affect India. Because in India we had a Reserve Bank governor called Reddy. And he said that not more than 20% of the loans of the banks can be given for real estate. Put very strict rules. So our banks were not in a position to give loans for real estate. And therefore they were protected. So nothing happened to any of our banks. American banks were collapsing, investment banks were collapsing, but not a single Indian bank collapsed. Then what happened? Why did we suffer? Because our crooked politicians, and we have many of them, mostly in UPA of course, they devised a new mechanism which nobody writes in the newspaper about, which is called participatory note. What is a participatory note? No other country in the world has a participatory note. But India has invented a participatory note. We are brilliant people, but if you use it for wrong purposes, then they can play havoc. So this participatory note is like this. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, US Fidelity Investments, in Europe or London or America, any Indian can go with a sack of dollars and put it on the counter, and he will give you a piece of paper. The fellow at the counter will give you a piece of paper, which is a participatory note. Your name will not be in it. There will be no serial number. There will be no date. And it will only have the amount. That's all. The amount you put in dollars. But you have to show your Indian passport. Why? Because no other country in the world has participatory note. Only India has. So only for Indians, authorized Indians, this can be given. So he gets the participatory note and he comes to India and gives a photocopy to Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank gives him a chit, and you can take that and go to the stock market and say, here is the Reserve Bank receipt, and plus this is my participatory note. Please invest. So they invest, stock market goes up, they sell, and then they get in rupees. You take the rupees to the Reserve Bank, and the law was changed by Mr. Chidambaram to say that if any participatory note holder brings rupees, you have to give foreign exchange in return. So they immediately converted to dollars, and then you take it out. Now, who are these people who go to Morgan Stanley and US Fidelity Investment with sacks of dollars? Well, those who have illegal bank accounts. And how do you get illegal bank accounts with money? You make money here by corruption and give it to the Hawala man. Hawala man will go to Dubai, and from there through the computer he will transfer the dollar equivalent into your account. Then you go and draw out that money and then go and get a participatory note, and then you bring it here, invest in the stock market. The stock market goes up and you earn money. Of course, there was once earlier on a regulation that whatever you earn on the stock market as a windfall, you have to pay 30% as capital gains tax. So these politicians didn't like that. Why should I pay 30 lakhs, 30%? So a new regulation was passed by Mr. Chidambaram that if a Mauritius company invests in India, then poor Mauritius, they are all indentured labor from India and all. So out of sympathy for them, we will say they are exempted from capital gains tax. Now in Mauritius, you can register a company for $1, just $1. So the people with that participatory note come to Mauritius, they invest they set up a company, and the company comes and invests here. And as a consequence, they don't even pay these capital gains tax. Now what happens? When this money comes in, it is permitted also to go out quickly. If they had said if you bring in money, you can't take it away for 6 months, it would have been a different thing. But the law is that whatever money is come by participatory note can go out within 5 minutes without any restrictions. So all the politicians and top businessmen, they have converted a good part of their corruption money into participatory notes through the Hawala route, put in the bank and bring it here. I was surprised when I was doing this 2G spectrum scam. I found that all the 9 companies which got the license, spectrum license, all had an office in Mauritius. Then I checked further and found it was in the same street. Then I checked further, I found it was in the same building. Further checking showed it was on the same floor, in the same room. And the room was locked and there was no furniture inside. Bogus address. All our companies are opening offices in so that they can earn this. If they didn't have participatory notes, then they could not earn money on their black money. Because in Switzerland and other countries, if you deposit money on what is called as numbered accounts, they are called secret accounts. If you deposit it, they don't pay interest on your deposit. They charge you 2% service charge. And for Switzerland, it is a very good business because they get 2% from Indians, and with that money they go and invest in American bond market and get 4%. So Switzerland gets 6% without doing any work. So this participatory note had brought in $60 billion into India. Even now the dollar rate is, rupee rate is improving because for elections this participatory note has come in good number. But because it can go out anytime. Now what happened in 2009 is that America suddenly had a crisis, didn't have funds, so it became a market haven for those who had funds. So all these participatory notes, half of them, $30 billion in 1 week pulled out. And the stock market collapsed. And that's how the crisis came to India. Had we did not have participatory notes, India would have been completely unaffected by the crisis in America. And we would have made so much progress that we could have come very close to the American level of economic development. So this is the reason why we had this crisis. So now how do we get around this? That is the question today. Tomorrow a government comes, Modi's government comes, what should it do? First of all, in my opinion, by the way, I also want to tell you that one of the problems we had with the rupee collapsing to 67.7% is that the government allowed, not government allowed, the government did not stop one son and one son-in-law from doing short selling of the rupee. The other word for short selling is called forward trading. Usually forward trading means I take $1 from you and say I'll return $1 10 cents in 1 year. So you get 10% on it, or $1 20 cents, which means 20% on it. And with that dollar you go and bet in the foreign exchange market by giving a loan of $1 and hoping that the price of the dollar will increase. Now, as a consequence, the price of the rupee falls. So in that case, you will earn something extra. After giving $1 20 cents back, you still have some money left. So the way to check it, because short selling is illegal, the way to check it is Reserve Bank dumps $20 billion in the market. Say they are selling $20 billion. And immediately the dollar price will come down. The dollar price vis-a-vis rupee has to go up in order to make profit in short selling. So the Reserve Bank did not do it. Why it did not do it? Because the finance minister said, no, you can't do it. Mr. P. Chidambaram. He is quite a crook. And he's a lawyer also. So a lawyer who's a crook is a dangerous animal. I've tried to catch him in 2G, but he has slipped out of my hand. But not for long. When I get my government, I will fix him, send him to jail. See how unpopular he is, he can't even contest in the elections. Why is it that Chidambaram said this? Because his son was doing short selling in Singapore. Why shouldn't the Prime Minister intervene? Because her son-in-law was doing short selling in Dubai. Mr. Robert Vadra, some people call him Robert Vadra. He was doing short selling in Dubai. This man was doing short selling in Singapore. And therefore, they could not do what they had to do. We have $377 billion in reserves. 20 billion you could have put. The rupee would have come down very fast. And these people have become bankrupt. But because you wanted to support the illegal activities of this son and son-in-law, our rupee crashed like this. Now to fix it, fix the Indian economy, we have to go back from this 4.8% per year growth rate to 10%. And is it possible? Yes, it is possible. It is possible if the level of savings in the country as a ratio of GDP rises from the present 30% to 35%. Which means you have to encourage people to save more. Who are most of the savers in India? The middle class. They are bulk savers. 80% of the savings of our country is due to middle class. And that too, the women in the household of middle class. The real heroes of India in economics are the women who work in the kitchen, because they are all the time saving. Women are very, very particular about saving. And it is this savings which is giving the country so much saving. We are one of the highest rate of saving for households in the world. So we have to now make it possible for families to save more. How to do it? Well, I suggested one measure to the party. The party wanted me to dress it up in a more acceptable language. My language was abolish income tax. Because who pays income tax? Rich have got chartered accountants, so no problem. In fact, Dhirubhai Ambani used to pay zero income tax till 1996. And G.D. Birla showed an income of only 18,000 rupees a year. Because they have trusts and they have exemptions, you have expenses, so everything is the chartered accountant takes care of. And the poor people, they are below the income tax level. So the people who are paying income tax, middle class, salaried class, young entrepreneurs, young professionals, small and medium industry owners, these are the people who are paying income tax. And they are harassed. Even if they wanted to pay, they will be harassed. So therefore, encourage them to save by abolishing income tax. Party said, people will say that our party is for rich people, so give it in different language. So I've given it in a different language. We will restructure our tax system and we will raise the exemption limit to 5 lakh rupees a month. And anyone above 5 lakhs, if he saves in form of bank deposits, term deposits, that is 3 years, or bonds, government bonds, or share certificates, or in investment projects, all that will be deducted from the income before the tax is put. And the net result is the same, zero income tax. But my party said, no, this language is acceptable. So that is there in the manifesto. That's the first thing we're going to do. Because the income tax is now become a nightmare for everybody. Even in excise tax, out of 2,947 commodities subject to excise tax, if you rank them by their contribution to revenue, the first 22 give you 90% of the revenue. So why waste time putting on the remaining? Remove it from the others, provided you tell them this has been transferred in lower prices, and only retain it for 22. These are the tax reforms we want to bring, because it will enthuse the people. People will suddenly see their incomes going up. Of course, the chartered accountants will be unhappy, but then we'll give them other jobs to do. So first enthusiasm, then people say, where is the resources going to come from? If the income tax is gone, then budget, there are 2 lakh crore rupees coming from income tax. So I say, no, don't worry. There are other ways to earn resources for the government. What is the other way? The other way is auction spectrum licenses. When I found that the UPA government had given spectrum licenses at 2001 prices in 2008. In 2001 there were only 40 million mobile phones. In 2008, there were 700 million, 70 crore mobile sets. So the demand for spectrum had gone up. So the price of spectrum also went up. So when the 2G licenses were given, they were given at 2001 prices, the price at which the NDA had auctioned spectrum. Had UPA auctioned spectrum licenses in 2008, you would have got 10 times more. That was the market price, was 10 times. Now what is this 2G, 3G, 1G, 4G? Most people don't know. Even the Prime Minister doesn't know. I asked him, he said, for me 2G means Sonia Ji and Rahul Ji. But you see, when the cordless phone came, that was 1G. G for generation, PD, as they say in Hindi. 1G is first generation. What is the first generation? You pick up a phone, you dial, no wire, nothing, and the phone rings. Because the communication is through a wave, sound wave, which has long cycles. But you can only telephone. That is 1G. Then came 2G. In 2G you can telephone, you can send SMS, you can send email, you can send pictures. So there the difference is that the airwaves have more cycles. 3G, you can telephone, you can send SMS, you can send emails, you can send pictures, and the person who picks up the phone, you can see him. And he can see you. Today it has not come so extensively in India, but the army is using it because all the soldiers who are living in the Himalayas, they can talk to their family on 3G phones and they can see their family. 4G is also coming, where you can do all the things before, plus 10,000 pages of documents you can send. Today you cannot send more than 15-20 pages. 10,000 pages of documents you can send. So that has even more cycles. And in the atmosphere, in the sky, you have to make sure that they don't collide with each other. So these channels created, they are called spectrum. And that is limited. So there is a demand. So demand grows up, the price goes up. 10 times was the price. But they sold it at 1/10 the price, 2001 price. And the argument given was that we don't want the tariff rates to go up. Good argument. But many companies, 9 companies got the licenses. What did they do? Some of them are not even telecom companies. They were Raja's friends. So they were a real estate company. One of them is Bombay, Shahid Balwas, DB Realty, Unitech. These were not telecom companies. They didn't have a tower, nothing. And they were Raja's friends. So they got it. And what did they do? Shahid Balwas went and sold it to this Abu Dhabi company called Etisalat at 8 times the price. He sells to, buys from India from the Indian government at 1,680 crores for 4 megahertz. Sells it at 8 times that. That is about 15,000 crores. Same thing with Unitech. They sell it to Telenor, which is a Chinese technology-based company called Huawei, and also sells it for 8 times. Tata sells to Docomo at 13 times, because Tata has got towers, this thing, that thing, so it was able to command a higher price. It sold it for 13 times, 50% of their spectrum. Same thing with Idea, same thing with Videocon. All these 9 companies sold most of their licenses. Supposing the government had auctioned, then these foreign companies would have paid market price. You would have got 10 times what you got. What we got was 1680 crores of 2001 prices multiplied by 9. That came to about 15,000 crores. Total we got 15,000 crores. And had you auctioned it, you would have got 1,50,000 crores. And plus CDMA and the conversion from CDMA to GSM, all these things added together, you would have got 2 lakh crores. Minus 15,000 crores from that, you get 1,75,000 crores, which is what the CAG estimated. Mr. Sibal said, it's all nonsense, it is zero loss. How does he know it is zero loss? People started criticizing him. He said, poor chap, he doesn't know how to count beyond zero. Now they have auctioned. I went to Supreme Court, asked the licenses to be cancelled. And I'm happy to say, for the first time in the history of India, the licenses given were cancelled. Now the court has ordered them to auction. They have auctioned. They have not auctioned all together. They auctioned only 10%. And they got 68,000 crores in the first thing. And that was used in this budget. And this Chidambaram, who's a 420 number 1, he told Parliament, see, I have brought down fiscal deficit. How has he brought it down? They just use that money of the auction. So then one auction can give you 2 lakh crores. 3G, you will get 4 lakh crores. 4G, you will get 4.5 lakh crores. After that, 5G is to come. Every year you can get resources this way. What is the total income tax bill? 2 lakh crores. So 2G spectrum clears the income tax. 3G will give you more than the income tax. And then you also auction coal blocks. This case is going on in Supreme Court. They're going to cancel that coal block allocation also. And if you auction coal blocks, instead of giving away free, you will get 11 lakh crores. And you can auction for the next 15 years, every year. 11 lakh crores. That means 5 years income tax over. More than 5 years. Oil fields which has been given free to Ambanis, auction that, you get 24 lakh crores. If you bring all the money that is deposited abroad back, you will get 120 lakh crores. Can you get it back? Of course you can get it back. What do you have to do? Use the United Nations resolution of 2005 on terrorist financing, issue an ordinance. New parliament issues ordinance. There are 70 countries which do secret banking. All these 70 countries should be given a copy of the ordinance that all Indian accounts are hereby nationalized. If anybody can prove that the account is opened fairly, if anyone can prove that the money deposited is legal, we'll return the account. You will get it back. Why can't the present government do it? Because their accounts are there. How can they do it? So you can get 120 lakh crores of Indian money come back. No shortage of resources in this country. This is a myth that has been spread. So therefore I am saying to you that to raise the level of savings, encourage people to save more. Shortage of resources, none. And use this money for good things. All the surplus money. Agriculture. It is the most important sector potentially. India can become the global agricultural power. Why? because we are the only country where agriculture can be carried out and carried on 12 months of the year. America, 5 months snow, can't do. Europe, 5 months snow, cannot do agriculture. China, for most parts of China, 3 months snow. India is the only country where you get sunshine, water, weather, for doing 3 crops a year. Today we are only growing in 25% of the land more than 1 crop. 75% is lying waste for 2 crop seasons. What do we need to do? Give good seeds, ensure water, see that everybody gets water, electricity, and the agriculture boom. Is this realistic? Of course. This is what Narendra Modi did in Gujarat. He was having growth rates of 1.5% in agriculture. Today it is growing between 11 to 12% per year for the last 6 years in a row. What did he do? He went and told the farmers, I'll give you 18 hours of uninterrupted electricity with a voltage fluctuation of only plus minus 5 volts. Why voltage fluctuation? Because you have irrigation pumps and the fluctuation is too much, it burns. So the farmer loses. So therefore, we need to ensure water, electricity and so on. And these farmers can grow 3 crops a year. Yield per acre in India, lowest in the world. The yield of per acre of agriculture, per acre of rice is 1/7 that in Japan. It's wheat 1/4 in United States. So in all the crops, India's agriculture is the lowest. Yield is the lowest. So what do we need to do? Give water, fertilizer, everything. It will increase the yield. Indian Council of Agricultural Research Institute and Indian Agricultural Research Institute, both of them in experimental plots are producing 8 to 9 times the amount of food production that a farmer does. If the Agricultural Institute can do it on Indian land, why can't the farmers do it? Because they don't have water, they don't have fertilizers, they don't have pesticides. Provide them and then export it. All the surplus that will be created, you export it. And internationally, Indian agriculture price is the lowest. Price of rice compared to South Africa is 1/6. Price of wheat is 1/3 that in the United States. Price of fruits, price of vegetables, all lower. Price of sugar, lower. Price of milk is 1/10 Europe. And we have 150 million cows. The average yield of milk from a cow is only 200 liters per year. In Israel, because they feed their cows well, each cow gives you 11,000 average, 11,000 liters per year. So if 150 million cows give you 11,000 liters per year, how much milk you will have? You can have bath in milk. All you need to do is pasteurize it, bottle it, put it in cold storage, send it to Europe for sale. We have neglected agriculture. This is the great fault of Jawaharlal Nehru. Mahatma Gandhi had said in 47, Sardar Patel had said, our agriculture has been bled by the British. See, in 1857, when Rani Jhansi led what Savarkar correctly called as the first war of independence. The British call it mutiny, to degrade it. But the correct is that it was a rebellion, all India rebellion. Right from Tamil Nadu to Kashmir, there was a rebellion. Not only in Meerut, as they are trying to make out. And this rebellion was financed by the Indian farmers. They collected the money, they collected the manpower and gave it to our Rajas and Ranis. So the British, after crushing it, said that this is a dangerous part. So we must break the back of the farmers. So what they did was, they got hold of all the criminals and made them into zamindars and said, you have the power to collect as much money as you want, provided you give this much amount for running our administration without fail. And if you default, then we'll remove you and appoint somebody else. So these zamindars had the power to collect as much they wanted, plus if the farmer failed to pay, to take away his land. If the farmer didn't have land, he had already lost it, then his brother's land. All this power they were empowered, and they bled agriculture. And by 1947, it was completely bled. But Jawaharlal Nehru wanted to have the Soviet economic model. It was unsuited for India. He didn't, he was not ready to listen to anybody. And after Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated and Sardar Patel died, he became a law unto himself. The only person he ever thought of listening to was Edwina Mountbatten, but nobody else. So he brought this Soviet model. What is this Soviet model? Extract resources from agriculture, use it for industrialization. There is no resources to extract. So the Soviet model very first immediately produced a foreign exchange crisis because there was no export-import, and then a food crisis in 1965. And then that time Lal Bahadur Shastri decided that he would use this international research on seeds and so on, and Green Revolution was created by just 10% of our farmers, and we became self-sufficient in food grains. After begging for food from America on PL 480, thanks to the Green Revolution, we were saved. Just that little amount. Today you make our agriculture, invest it, put cold storages, small airports, feeder airports, efficient shipping, packaging. You can convert this into a global sector. So this is one thing we want to do, and this is what needs to be done, because even today 60% of our people are employed by agriculture. So they must get jobs. And then put in industry like food processing, canning, making jams, preserving foods, fruits. These kinds of things gives you employment. Textiles, all these things which depend on agriculture can become a subsidiary industry. This is the way to do it. Now, one of the problems we have in our country is our dependence on foreigners for certain essential items like crude oil. You want petrol, you have to get oil and then refine it. And these Arabs, you see, all they do is dig a hole in the ground, oil comes out, they raise the prices, and we have to pay. So we have to find some way now to ensure we get power supply for every part of India, 24 hours a day. And we must be free from this oil, because 86% of our oil is coming from abroad. Can this be done? Yes, it can be done. There's a new invention called hydrogen fuel cells. Toyota car is going to start production for hydrogen fuel cells from 2015. I mean, cars driven by hydrogen fuel cells. It's like a battery. You plug electricity into it in the night, and next morning for the whole day you can drive 350 kilometers. And if you have, instead of petrol stations, you have recharging stations, then it will be like any other car. And it's environment friendly, no pollution. Are we able to do it? Yes. Why the Americans done it? Because the Americans got so much oil that their oil company says, no, you can't do all this, we'll be ruined. Because Americans went to Iraq and stole all the oil and put it in silos in the ground. So Americans, companies will not allow their people to do it. Japan is doing it, but we have already done plenty of research. We need to focus our minds on this and see that hydrogen fuel cells is produced in India. And if we produce it, then the whole of Asia will buy from us. So oil demand will go down. Even China will buy from us. And if oil demand goes up, then what these poor Arabs will do? They will have to go back to their tents and their camels. Yes, because there is no industry. You go from Morocco to Indonesia. In the entire Arab world or the Islamic world, there is no industry. It's all oil dependent. You want to finish off terrorism, one way is to reduce the dependence on oil. So, who can do this? Young people. And we are the luckiest people today because for large countries, we have the largest number, proportional wise, of young people. 70% of our population below the age of 35. Average age of an Indian is 26. What is the average age of an American? 37. China 36. European 46. Japan 50. These are aging populations. Why is Europe having economic problem? Because their population growth rate has suddenly dropped. And people are living longer. So the number of old people is becoming very large. Previously their pension system was working because the number of people who came into the labor force was larger than the number of people retiring. So they used to cut their gratuity, provident fund and all that and use that money to pay pension for retiring people. But now fewer people are coming in and more people are retiring plus living longer. So they have a huge pension problem. 90% of the Europe's problem is that. Ours, you see, because our people did not agree to Mrs. Gandhi and her son Sanjay Gandhi forcibly sterilizing us at the encouragement of the Western world. And in fact, throughout Mrs. Gandhi in the 77 election, this being one of the causes, our population growth rate is coming down slowly. It is coming down, but it's not coming down fast like China. And therefore, we today have such a large number of young people. And these young people have to be given high quality education. They have to be told to become innovators, find new ways of doing things. We have got 60% of the world's thorium. In another 20 years or 25 years, there will be no uranium in the world. So the Americans have already started research on thorium. But we have got 60%. So this 60% thorium must be used for power systems in our country. There are 3 cycles. We have already mastered 2 cycles. And the 3rd cycle, if we master, then we can set up thorium reactors. And India can become self-sufficient in power, electric power by use of thorium. And we can even sell it to our neighbors. A huge surplus. These are some of the things that we can do. And this is a way, for that it needs focus. That's why in our manifesto we have said, innovation will be given focus. Congress party doesn't use innovation and all that. They only talk about EDREGA and MREGA and all that. Can't blame them. Most of them are not well-educated people. They claim to be. The Nehru family claimed that, see, I have always been a little puzzled. Dr. Ambedkar went to Columbia University in 1916 and he got a PhD in economics. I've read his thesis, excellent thesis. Even today it is worth reading. Then he went to England and got a law degree. Then he came to India and then he led the discussion on the Constitution in our Constituent Assembly. And all congressmen call him Bhim Rao. Jawaharlal Nehru went to Cambridge University and there he failed. But those days, those who came from colony and came from the upper class, the Cambridge University had devised a new degree which now they have abolished it. It is called Gentleman Pass. So Jawaharlal Nehru got Gentleman Pass. He came back to India and everybody started calling him Pandit Ji. You can call Ambedkar Pandit Ji because he's got PhD and law degree. How can you call Jawaharlal Nehru is Gentleman Pass Pandit Ji? Shows some weakness in ours in this family. This family is such that nobody has passed college exams. Sonia Gandhi claimed that she got a degree. I must say to the credit of Rajiv Gandhi, he never claimed he got it. He went to Cambridge, he failed there, so he went to Imperial College, he failed there also. And then he married Sonia, he failed there also. Sonia Gandhi in her affidavit put, educated in the University of Cambridge and got a degree in English. By chance I had gone to give a lecture in the Department of Economics in Cambridge University, and at dinner time I asked them what kind of student she was. They said, she was never a student here. I said, really? Can you give this to me in writing? They said, you give us a letter, we'll give you in writing. So I immediately wrote by hand a letter, and they gave me a letter from the registrar. There's no such student. Of course, I put all the names. Sonia Gandhi, Sonia Maino, Antonia Maino, Edwige Maino, Albina Maino, Antonia Maino. All the names I put. And they said, no, there's no such student. So I came back, and that time the NDA was in power, and Manoj Joshi was the speaker. So I gave it to him. I said, see, I got this letter, and she has put in her affidavit as a candidate. And also in the Parliament Who's Who, she has said she's got a degree in Cambridge, University of Cambridge. No, she studied in the University of Cambridge and got a degree in English. But the university says no such student. So you please ask her an explanation. So he sent the letter to her, and she replied back, it was a printing mistake. Then he said, how can it be a printing mistake? This is we printed whatever you said. She said, no, I meant typing mistake. And Manoj Joshi asked me, now what shall we do? He said, how can this be a typing mistake? Whole sentence. Educated in the University of Cambridge and got a degree in English. I mean, typing mistake, one comma, full stop, that can be a typing mistake. So he said, then what shall we do? I said, send it to the Guinness Book of World Record for the longest typing mistake in history. This Rahul Gandhi, he went to Doon School. There, senior Cambridge got through on rifle shooting, And then he got on rifle shooting quota, he got sportsman quota, he got into St. Stephen's College. Plus that he was a Christian, so they gave preference also. He failed in Hindi there, dropped out. Rajiv Gandhi was my friend, and he was one day telling me, this boy needs to study abroad. Can he go to Harvard? I said, no, see, his grades are very bad. I will not take him. He said, no, there must be some way. So there's only one way. You donate $10 million, they will give him admission. But once he gets admission, then he has to work as hard as any other student. Otherwise, they'll throw him out and keep the $10 million also. So he said, no, this environment is not good. So if he goes to Harvard, he will improve. So somebody, I think the Hindujas, put $10 million and he got admission. 4 months he was thrown out. And he then went to I don't know where. And now he comes and tells Arnab Goswami, I've been to University of Cambridge and I've got an MPhil degree. Now, MPhil degree, you have to pass an exam, then you have to write a thesis. Again, I had gone 2 years ago to the university. And I went to the Department of Economics. I said, is this fellow a student here for MPhil? They said, no. But he was a student in a department called Development Studies, which deals with land acquisition. Must have taught Vadra how to do it. So I went to the Department of Development Studies, and there I found everything being shut down. They said, what happened? They said, no, we are not getting any more students, so we are closing down the department. But then I said, I've come to look for Mr. Rahul Gandhi, whether he got MPhil. See, if he got MPhil, he should have a thesis. If he has a thesis, it should be in the library. So I went to the library, couldn't find the thesis. Then I came back and told the department chairman. Department chairman said, okay, then he must have taken the exam. He looked at the exam, there was no exam. I mean, no record of the exam. So I didn't know what to do. So I went back to the university, and they told me he had come in a different name. What name? Raul Vinci. R-A-U-L-V-I-N-C-I. Now that is the name his mother gave when he was born. When he was born, his mother was an Italian citizen. That is, he was born in 1970, mother became Indian citizen only in 83. So in 1970 she was still Italian. She had sent a letter to the Italian embassy that I have given birth to a son and his name is Raul Vinci. So I got convinced. Then I asked them, is this Raul Vinci? They said yes. Then I accessed the record, because Rahul Gandhi I didn't find anything. But Raul Vinci I found, and I got the certificate. And the certificate says that Mr. Raul Vinci was admitted to MPhil, but of the 4 courses he failed in economics. Therefore no MPhil. Now Arnab Goswami asks him that Swami says like this, he says, well, I've got the certificate, I'm willing to show him. But I've asked him, I've sent messages to him, he's not showing me, because he can't. So I'm waiting to see how he files his nomination papers, because you have to swear. If there he says MPhil, I'll file a case against him. Incidentally, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi has filed her nomination papers without claiming she was educated in the University of Cambridge. In fact, she only studied 5th class. That I found out. And then she went to England to learn some English so that she could get a job. And I've always asked the Congress party people. You say that, for instance, yesterday also in a debate with in NDTV, Mr. Digvijay Singh was the other debater, and he said that Narendra Modi did not declare his wife before, now he's declared a wife. So I said Sonia Gandhi claimed that she was educated in Cambridge, and we found that was a lie. And now we don't know where she was in England from 1963 to 68. So I wanted to know how she supported herself, because she was 5th class, so she must have worked somewhere. Even today congressmen are too embarrassed to tell me where she worked from 1963 to 68. And I am also a little ashamed to tell you, so I will not tell you. Poor Rajiv Gandhi got caught with her. So now I am saying to you, how can these people ever bring about economic change? For economic change, you need some dedication. Master Narasimha Rao was a highly educated man, completely dedicated. He could use people, he even got work done out of Manmohan Singh. People say, why is it that Manmohan Singh cannot take decisions? He is a Prime Minister of the country, what powerful chair it is. Well, I tell people, have you ever been to a circus? In a circus, there is a cage, 5 lions there, strong, well-fed lions. One thin ringmaster will come in, close the gate and go in, And then he will order the lions, climb up. They'll all climb up. Open your mouth. They'll all open your mouth. He'll put his head in each of them. I wondered always when I was a little boy, why these lions don't bite him, bite his head off. Because they have been brought up that way. From the cub stage, they have been brought up to obey orders. So even though they have so much strength, they don't know. But they only know how to obey orders. And you know, in Sanskrit, lion means sing. So Manmohan Singh is also a circus sing, you see. He has been learned, he has been taught like that, to obey orders. And he cannot take a chance. The only good thing Manmohan Singh has done in these last 10 years is not resign his job, because had he resigned, then Rahul Gandhi would have become Prime Minister. That would have been a disaster for the country. So I say to you today, there is no shortage of resources. Wrong were people who say that you have to increase taxes. No, you lower taxes. But you do auction of your resources instead of giving away free. You get all the resources you want. Develop agriculture. Go for innovation. And then help people to increase their savings by reducing the load of taxes on them. The country can revive in no time. I had said this in 1990 when I became Minister of Commerce in the government of Narasimha Rao, and my economic advisor, by the way, at that time was Manmohan Singh. He was at that time a bureaucrat, and he was appointed as the economic advisor. And he was a good man, because whatever he dictated, he wrote it down very carefully. So, in no time, we went from 3.5% rate of growth, which was called the Hindu rate of growth for some crazy reason, right up to 8% in just 5 years. We can today go from this present 4.8% per year to 10%, 12%. And if for the 5 years on an average you achieve 10% growth rate, India will become a developed country by 2025 and will overtake the United States by 2050. So all it requires is resolve. We can solve the problem of corruption by having efficient way. First of all, you must catch big people, not small people, policemen and all that. Catch big people, so then everybody gets afraid. If it can happen to them, it can happen to me. Second is, we must change our philosophy. I had a student called Rajat Gupta. He went to America, did wonderfully. I in fact gave him a recommendation to Harvard Business School. And what happened? He went there, made a lot of money, and then suddenly he did illegal things because of greed. We must learn from our Sanatan Dharma that money is not an indication of social status. In fact, the highest social status is given to those who are men of learning and have sacrificed the normal comforts of life. Americans used to ask me, how can you follow Mahatma Gandhi? I said, why? He said, you're not properly dressed. So how can you follow him? I said, why in your country leaders have to be properly dressed? He said, yes. Must have a lovely tie, suit, boot, shining shoes. Otherwise we will not accept them. It is true. In our country you have leaders simply dressed. Our spiritual leaders, they have only one piece of Bhagavad Kapda. And everybody worships them. You see their spiritual leaders, the Pope, satin gown, diamond necklace, ruby necklace, and then his cap is full of jewels. Their society is a one-dimensional materialistic society, and that produces greed. It doesn't produce happiness. If it produces happiness, why rich Americans are coming to Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's ashram and Baba Ramdev's ashram? Looking for happiness. Happiness is what Deen Dayal Upadhyaya had once said. It has to be a harmonization between material prosperity and spiritual advancement. That is Sanatan Dharma. And then there will be no greed. And if there is no greed, there will be no corruption. Of course, you must catch people who are corrupt. There are always bad people in society. But the society should not develop a view that the more money you have, the more status you have, which is now developing in our country. That has to be checked. And that's why people are being corrupt also. So we can transform India, but it requires dedicated leadership. And in my opinion, under the present proposed leadership of the BJP, namely Mr. Narendra Modi, and the team is likely to assemble, India can transform in 5 years and become a developed country. Thank you.